Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, please be outstanding for the Chair and Vice Chair of Harlow Council.
Evening, councillors. Evening, seated. Just before I start, if you are not speaking, will you please use a mask? And I'd like to introduce Councillor John Spear, who is now joining the council. Apologies for absence. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Just two apologies from us, Councillor Sue Livings and Councillor Eddie Johnson.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor John Strachan and Councillor Eugenie Harvey.
Thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any? No? Minutes of the previous meeting on the 20th of May. Do I agree? Thank you. Item 4, communications from the Chair. It's been a little bit quiet since I've been made Chair, but I've done 2 Jack Petrie Awards on Zoom. One for Parsonals and one for Harlow Fields. Councillor Hoodrick and myself went to Ray's Roof to see their new film, which we found very interesting. I've been to Chelmsford for the Mayor of Chelmsford Civic Service and also attended the Rugby Club last Sunday. Item 5, petitions from the public. There are none. Questions from the public. I understand we have 4. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, good evening. Members may recall that 2 questions about the external repair and painting of council-owned houses were asked of councillors in 2020. This was as a result of my seeking a freedom of information request to the council, which revealed that the council had not kept any record of work done prior to 2016, and very few houses have been done since. I'm aware that a council house that has only been repaired and painted externally once in the last 25 years. In response to the first question, Councillor Wilkinson said that on the 27th of February 2020 that a programme of cyclical maintenance would be prepared and appear on the council's website in May 2020. It did not. Hence my question on the 10th of September, to which Councillor Ingle responded by saying that following a review of the implications of COVID-19, it is expected that a revised housing investment programme will be published later in the year. To date, nothing on this subject has appeared on the Council's website. When does the Council intend to carry out such work, and when will the website be updated with such information?
Councillor Carlton.
Does he wish me to read my answer, or can we take the brief?
Mr. Taylor spoke about his one. I would like you to speak, please.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Taylor. In 2020, the Council's Housing Investment Programme, or HIP, was largely suspended due to restrictions placed by COVID-19. However, as part of the government's published roadmap emerging from lockdown, these programmes of work are recommencing, including the external redecoration of council-owned homes and bungalows within the resources available. Programmes are currently being revised in order to both complete last year's HIP as well as the work planned on the estates for 21-22. It is expected that the Council will publish its revised and reprioritised HIP programmes for the next 5-year cycle of investment 21-22 later in the year.
Mr. Taylor, do you have a supplementary question?
No, I don't.
Thank you very much. Do you want to answer your second question?
Okay, September 2020, Councillor Ingle was asked about the maintenance of trees. In response, he said that working with HGS, a proactive planned maintenance regime will be put in place from April 2021. I noticed that at the Cabinet meeting on the 26th of March, it was reported that there had been a shortfall in performance in the third quarter of 2021, which was likely to be maintained throughout to the end of the year. The recruitment of a specialist consultancy had in fact identified a larger number of works to be completed and the situation will not be recovered fully until 2021-22. Can you advise me if a proactive planned maintenance regime has been put in place? Has the list of works been prioritised? What targets have been set for work to be completed? And when will this information be placed on the council's website?
Councillor Gunn.
A proactive management regime for tree maintenance is to be implemented in this financial year. HTS has now produced a costed proposal for this, and council officers are now in discussions with HTS about its implementation and the setting of targets. This will be in a phased approach, since a planned maintenance regime requires a survey to first map and then inspect every substantial tree in the town, which will clearly take some time to undertake. It is estimated that in reality, this will take 2 to 3 years to complete across the whole town, but it will deliver a planned maintenance programme that will commence this year. In the meantime, HTS continue to deliver works to trees, and residents can report dead or dangerous trees by phone or via the council's website. I am pleased to be able to report the performance on tree works has recovered, and in the second quarter of this year, HTS expect to be delivering in full against their performance indicators.
Mr. Taylor, have you supplementary?
I would like to ask another question, yes.
No.
Or
is it regarding this question that you've asked?
It touches on both questions.
No, I don't think that's allowed, sir. Sorry.
Okay.
If you have a supplementary to item on your question 2, that is acceptable. But if you haven't, no.
I'll be back next time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Leverick. Oh, yes.
Good evening, councillors. My first question is, and the first comment first for that is pleasing to see at long last the occupation of the flats at Prentice Place. With a new administration, is the public going to be informed of the true reason for the delay of over a year for the what appeared to be after completion and the actual occupation? It was also evident that 24-hour security of the flats was provided to protect them from unwanted occupation or damage. Can the council please inform me of the cost of this service and what budget it comes from?
Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question, Mr. Leverett. It is pleasing to see that after years of delay under Labour, we have been able to allocate these properties to 10 homeless families. The scheme began in 2008-9 under a Conservative administration, so you could say it has come full circle. The delay to completion to Prentice Place occurred because A, the fire stopping between the retail and residential units did not meet current fire safety regulations and therefore needed to be upgraded. B, issues with electrical distribution. C, the doors specified in the original drawings complied with building regulations at that time. However, at the time of completion, building regulations had been changed and updated, requiring alternative fire doors to be installed. Although the fitting of the alternative doors could not be legally enforced, as the structure of the building had not been altered, as a local authority, the decision was taken that we should be fully compliant with the current fire safety and building regulations to enable the properties to be offered to people from the housing register. As you will see, some of the delays were caused by the extreme delay between drawing up the specifications for the scheme and actually implementing them. The overall expenditure for security services at Prentice Place is £209,900.06 over a 3-year period. The overall percentage split is per below. A, regeneration 25%, property and facilities 50%, and housing 25%.
Mr. Leverett, have you got a supplementary?
Thank you very much for the comprehensive answer. Can I ask my second question?
Yes, you can.
We were informed previously that Osler House, part of the Prentice Place scheme, was to be refurbished as a community hub. Can the council inform me of what progress has been made and when it's likely to be available for use?
Councillor Swords.
I thank Mr Leverett for his question, and I want to begin by paying tribute to Councillor Hallcoop, who I know has worked extremely hard to ensure the Osler House site is used for the benefit of the community. To that end, I share Mr Leverett's disappointment that the previous administration did not complete full plans for the redevelopment of Prentice Place site, and it's particularly upsetting that the promised work has not been carried out on the Osler House site today. Given that the last administration spent 10 painful years attempting to deliver the redevelopment. However, our new council is committed to delivering the scheme at Osler House site, which will be of huge benefit to the local community. The council is in active negotiation at present, and thus I will update Mr Leverett and of course the public on that progress very soon.
Do you have a supplementary, Mr.
I do, sir. In relation to this, I am involved with a particular body that have been partners to this in terms of financial, they've been looking for partners to financially support it. Can I ask whether they've all been informed? Because the one I've been involved with, I didn't know what's happening with it.
Councillor Swords.
Thank you for that update, and I will ensure that council officers make contact with the relevant bodies, but as I've already set out, council's in active negotiation, and therefore I cannot comment further on the specifics of the scheme. I hope to update Mr Leverett and other local residents very soon indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, item 7, questions from councillors. And the first one is from Councillor Davis to Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Chair. My original question was, could the portfolio holder briefly outline the new administration's new green policies for Harlow Council to face up to the declared climate emergency?
Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by paying tribute to the late Councillor Danny Purton, who led this work on behalf of the Council in recent years, following Harlow Council's declaration of climate emergency. I know he's deeply missed by many in this chamber, and recognise that in several regards some continuing works that begun under his tenure. Addressing the challenges posed by climate change is a global concern on which there's fundamental cross-party agreement. We should be united in working towards a zero-carbon future for this town, our country and across the world. I'm determined that Harlow Council more than plays our part in this. The Council has already made great strides towards reducing its carbon footprint since Harlow's first carbon management plan in 2001, launched by the last Conservative administration. This work has been accelerated since the 2019 climate emergency, which was unanimously agreed through introducing significant energy-saving measures in our buildings, and I commend the previous administration for their achievements on that. This administration will continue and extend the Council's carbon reduction programme and set out ambitions for a wider climate change strategy and action plan for Harlow. This will be with a view to setting a target date for when Harlow Council will achieve net zero, following the leadership set by the Conservative government nationally when it set the UK's 2050 net zero target in law. I will be bringing a report to the September Cabinet to set out these plans. We will take a rigorous approach to protecting and enhancing the town's environmental assets, particularly Sir Frederick Gilbert's legacy of green wedges and wider green infrastructure across the town. We will be continuing the tree planting programme begun under the previous administration, but also wish to take a more systematic approach to the maintenance of the town's trees. We are commissioning a tree survey to map every significant tree in Harlow, which will then result in a proactive approach to tree maintenance. This will help us to protect existing trees whilst also planting and protecting new ones. Further, and in conjunction with this work, we will be developing a biodiversity strategy for the Council to ensure that we meet our responsibility on addressing biodiversity loss. I intend to bring a report to the additional November Cabinet setting out these plans. Alongside supporting sustainable and active transport, this administration is committed to delivering a significant expansion of the town's electric vehicle charging infrastructure. With the sale of new petrol and diesel cars to end by 2030, we have an obligation to Harlow's residents to ensure their town is ready for the transition to electric, which is already underway. I will be bringing a report to Cabinet in September to provide more detail on this.
No, I simply would like to thank Councillor Gunn for his reply. Thank you.
Your second question to
Why?
Councillor Charles?
Sorry, I thought that would have been time for a supplementary if I wanted one, but I didn't. Once again, my question was, could the portfolio holder briefly outline the non-statutory services that are now at risk of cuts to their budgets and the ones that are threatened with closure?
Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Our administration wishes to explore opportunities to invest in the Council's much-loved non-statutory services. As part of an ongoing review of Council budgets launched by the portfolio holder for finance and governance, it is not anticipated that there will be any changes to the Council's community services budgets that will negatively impact frontline delivery. Our administration plans to set out more detail about the Council's future spending priorities as part of the annual work to update the medium-term financial strategy in the autumn of this year and development of a budget. Announcements will be made in the usual way early next year.
Have you a supplementary, Councillor?
Yes, given the track record of the previous Tory regime in terms of privatising many of our non-statutory services, and the Council taking a long time, like a museum, to actually get them onto a proper footing, can he actually also pledge that no privatisation of the non-statutory services will take place?
Yes, Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. My pledge to Council is very clear. This administration will be investing in our non-statutory community services. They are the lifeblood of this community, and it is my intention, working closely with the portfolio holder for finance and governance, to endeavour to invest in them so that future generations can enjoy them.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Chair. Does the portfolio holder share the previous administration's view that sound place is a vital resource for the parents of those children with music, that it should be provided free of charge, and will you challenge Essex County Council should they return to their proposals to charge for this service?
Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Sounds Place provides disabled children and young people a range of structured opportunities to gain new life skills. It is a highly regarded service in the local community. Our administration believes that families accessing Sounds Place should continue to be able to enjoy the existing range of services unchanged. The current contract is in place until autumn 2022, and we are assured there will be continuity in the current provision. At the present time, the Council has not been made aware of what the terms of any new contract might be. Our administration is already planning to make provision as part of the annual work to update the medium-term financial strategy in the autumn of this year and in next year's budget, 2022-2023, for a continuity fund to ensure that families are not burdened with fees in the future should the current contracting arrangements at Sounds Place change and the Council be successful in tendering for the new service.
Have you a supplementary, Councillor Briggs?
Thank you, Councillor Charles. I welcome your originals.
Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. We saw many promises made by the Harlow Conservatives over the election campaign, and the ones that really stick in my mind are to do with the arts in our town. I know in Harlow's vibrant musical community they are very excited about the prospect of a new music venue in the town, as prominently promised on those glossy videos and discussed by our local media. When will this happen? Where will this happen? And how? I fear that they have overpromised and will under-deliver by resorting to the Tory type of knowing the price of everything but the value of nothing.
Councillor Swords.
Well, I'm pleased that Councillor Dunn enjoyed our campaign video as much as the other 41,823 residents who saw it, and duly elected Conservative councillors in seats across this town that had never voted Conservative before. The video summarised the failings of the previous Labour administration and offered a vision of hope for the future, with our plan to make Harlow the best town in Britain to raise your family and to send your kids to school. The best place to start a business, the best place to live and to be. It was a great shame that the previous Labour administration did not save the last live music venue our town had, nor did they open a new one, nor in fact did they do anything to increase the cultural and leisure offerings of our town. We are ending their decade of decline and kick-starting a decade of renewal with the biggest programme of regeneration since the new town was built. As part of our once-in-a-generation programme, we will deliver a new live music venue. However, that will be just one small part of our programme. We will make Harlow one of the best towns for entertainment, culture and leisure, and that will include a whole host of new venues, bars, restaurants and much more besides. Plans will come forward in due course, setting out the exact details of such offerings and the full and complete regeneration works. On Councillor Dunn's final point, he defers to Oscar Wilde's picture of Dorian Gray to express his thoughts. Perhaps a more pertinent quotation would have been, "A man who does not think for himself does not think at all." However, he talks of cost and value, which quite well sums up the previous Labour Council. They cost you more and brought you less.
Is Councillor Swords aware that my quote from Oscar Wilde is from Lady Windermere's fan, uttered by Lord Darlington, and not, in fact, from the picture of Dorian Gray? Google is your friend.
Well, I'm pleased he brings details to the fore, because as I said, details will come forward in due course, and we are working night and day to pull together that plan. I may add, it's not been made any easier by Labour's decade of decline, selling off plots of land and failing to regenerate. But we will deliver, as I said, a brand new live music venue for our town, and I look forward to Councillor Dunn, and I believe Mrs Dunn, performing at the new venue, as I'm aware they're keen musicians, if not of much quality.
Thank you, Councillor Swords. I'm your own fan. Can the Cabinet portfolio holder for strategic growth guarantee that the programme at the Playhouse will not be affected by the budget this year and in coming years, as the Labour Group carried out our own analysis of the proposals for an alternative budget last year, which showed a hole in the finances after 3 years, and will we therefore be able to enjoy our wonderful theatre at its very best, or will he be, to paraphrase the words of David Bowie, who played at the venue, the man who sold the world?
Thank you, Chair. The Playhouse, alongside the theatre community nationally, has been impacted by the restrictions that have been put in place to keep people safe during the pandemic. The lockdowns have restricted the ability of the venue to deliver a full programme of events during the last 15 months. Although we are heading cautiously towards ending pandemic-specific legal measures under Stage 4 of the government's roadmap, it cannot be ruled out at this time that further restrictions may again impact the Playhouse artistic programme, as they have across all theatres and other venues for performing arts since March 2020. In a previous reply this evening to the question from Councillor Danvers, I made it clear that our administration takes its responsibilities for ensuring sound financial management seriously. A detailed budget review process is already being undertaken. My reply also made it clear that there are no non-statutory services at risk as a result of this review. This commitment includes the Playhouse.
No, I haven't. I can't think of another Bowie reference. No.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. Given the reported level of public concern regarding the planned second Stork River crossing and the potential detrimental effect to the environment and amenity, can all members please be given a further detailed officer briefing prior to the matter being formally considered by the East Hertfordshire or Harlow Development Management Committees?
Thank you, Chair. As a regular substitute of the Development Management Committee, I appreciate how important it is for all members to be aware of and have the opportunity to ask questions on large planning applications. Councillor Hardware, as the new portfolio holder for strategic growth, has already taken steps to ensure that members are better briefed on all applications that come before this council. I have asked for and can confirm that there will be an all-member briefing on the Stork River crossing proposals before the applications are presented to the Development Management Committees of both Harlow Council and East Hertfordshire District Council. I have asked officers to ensure that the planning is, that the briefing is in good time before the committee meetings take place, once all planning issues have been addressed, so that members are as informed as possible. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind all members of, and substitutes to, the Development Management Committee the importance of the avoidance of, or the appearance of, predetermination of planning issues.
I do supplementary.
I do have a supplementary. I welcome the response. I do have a concern, which is the line once all planning issues have been addressed, because certainly in the 4 years that I've been a councillor, we've had the opportunity of, we've been presented with planning. What we haven't been presented with is any sort of, we haven't been presented with arguments about what alternatives have been considered and how they've been explored and what has been discounted and why. And that's what I would like, so if at all possible, for the officers to brief the councillors on. So my question is, putting that into a question is, can we ensure that in that briefing that officers specifically address what alternative issues, what alternatives have been explored, what alternative proposals have been explored, what have been discounted and why? And can we also ensure that that is done, as Andrew said, in good time, in order that hopefully, if we need to as a group, and this is cross-party, that if we need to as a group, that we can influence, and we can go, if we have any sort of issues, we can go back to the necessary bodies to ask that they consider alternatives if we believe that alternatives would be usefully considered. Thank you.
As a substitute to the Development Management Committee, it's very difficult for me to talk about the ideas of alternatives without suggesting a level of predetermination, so I will not touch that part of the question. But can I reassure Councillor Edwards that no matter the quality of briefings previously that he may have received on planning, I recognise that this development, or proposed development, is an incredibly important development for the area and has generated a great deal of concern from residents. I'm sure all of our email boxes have been full. So I have asked officers to deliver a comprehensive planning briefing for all members, open to those not just on the Development Management Committee, but to all members that wish to avail themselves. If at the time Councillor Edwards or indeed any other councillor feels that the briefing has not been comprehensive enough, I will be at the front gate of the front door of the council with him, asking officers to deliver further briefings or to deliver follow-ups with questions that members might have. It is important that members, before they take planning decisions, are fully informed, and that goes for any planning decision. And I'm confident the officers will deliver a comprehensive briefing as I have asked.
Councillor Maxie Watson.
Thank you. In a recent article in your Harlow, you say you have a plan to work with HTS to bring more new houses to Harlow. Can you confirm this plan is set to be announced and clarify the number of housing planned and what percentage of these homes will be built for social housing?
Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Councillor Watson, for your question. The housing pipeline is undergoing a thorough review in terms of suitability, viability and value for money. The aim of the pipeline is that all properties will be social housing owned by the council. Of the 6 schemes listed in the 2021 Q4 capital programme reported to Cabinet earlier this week, first of all, Bushycroft is well underway, work has just started on the Hill, Lister House and the Yorks are under active review, Sackfield has been removed as unsuitable and consultation is underway with local residents to turn the area into a knee-high garden for people with disabilities, and Brentford Towers is also removed for consideration. Is also removed for consideration as additional parking, particularly for those in Carter's Mead. 2 other sites have just emerged as suitable for development. The pipeline contains a long list of potential sites which will be reviewed on an ongoing basis to provide groups of sites suitable for development by HDS Housing Regeneration Limited. Details of sites going forward for development will be reported in the usual way through the quarterly capital programme reports.
Councillor Watson, have you supplementary? Thank you very much. Right. Item 8, motion from the Council Protection of Green Places. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I won't speak for too long as I've got a long speech coming up later. However, I do quickly want to explain why I put this motion forward. We all know how important our green spaces are, even more so over the last year, particularly for residents who live in flats and therefore don't have gardens for their children to play in. Like a number of members, including one member of the administration, I was concerned at the recent planning meeting it was agreed that an area playground behind Perfect Green School would be built. I was also concerned that the Section 106 money for this development was going to be spent in another area of Harlow and therefore would not benefit those residents who have been affected by that development. And I appreciate, and I hope that the motion appreciates that it's not always possible, but where possible, that should be done. This motion seeks to get the reassurance this doesn't set a precedent, that our green spaces will be protected as part of the local plan, and that whenever possible, Section 106 money is spent in the vicinity of the planning development. Chair, I move.
Councillor Danvers, you're seconding this motion.
Thank you, Chair. My concern really was purely the reason for this resolution was the very first meeting of the Development Control, the Planning Committee meeting, chaired by Michael Garnett, when we had quite a few new members present there, and we were actually told by the officer that the planning development for the Perfect Green playing fields, which had been lobbied very heavily against by the Bush Fair and Grace Grove community, was not part of the local plan. And he said with certain relish, I thought, that in fact this would actually be a bonus. Now I find that difficult to actually accept. I would have thought that we stick to a local plan that's not exactly fresh off the presses, but it's only about 6-9 months old. And then, at the end of the debate, the procedures were changed around, and we actually didn't follow the procedures, which I've made a complaint, but had been poo-pooed once again by the officers. That the Chief Planning Officer, look, can I...
Carry on, Councillor.
Well, can I carry on, Chair, or am I going to be heckled? Yes.
Carry on.
Thank you. The Chief Planning Officer, completely out of procedure, then summed up at the very end after the councillors had actually had a debate. The chair of the committee then moved the item, and nobody backed it initially. And he exhorted members of that committee, and eventually, slowly, hands were raised, sufficient hands, to actually back the plan. The plan that 2 of those members of the committee are on Essex County Council. Where was the application from? It was from Essex Homes. Essex Homes seek to make 20% profit out of the development of the Perfect Green playing fields. 20% profit. And therefore, it really begs the question that you, Chair, and the Chair of the committee really should have really absented themselves from that vote, because you are so closely tied up with the financial interest of Essex County Council. The other thing was the money that was offered by Essex County Council. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how much it was, but the 106 monies were not for the local community, not for the Grace Grove community, but for the Church Langley community, which stood common sense on its head. So we actually have tonight, if I can find it, we actually have the new portfolio holder saying, quote, "We will take a rigorous approach to protecting and enhancing the town's environmental assets, particularly Sir Frederick Gilbert's legacy of green wedges and wider green infrastructure across the town." Well, it's not a very good start, it's not a very encouraging start, Chair.
Councillor Holbrook, I understand you have an amendment to the motion?
I do, yes, Chair. I'm not sure that it's been seconded. We haven't done that.
We were waiting for the first and seconded before, and it was seconded.
Who is seconding the amendment?
I'm seconding the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Carter.
Chair, I'm probably, what are we talking about?
There's an amendment.
No, we haven't got it.
No, we're going to get it.
It's not. It's so unprecedented, Chair, that an amendment should actually be issued so late.
Yes, absolutely, Chair.
New tactics, I assume.
Right, Michael, would you like to read out your amendment, please?
No, what it is.
There's no written, Chair.
It's coming. Mike, just wait until we all get it.
I know. Especially for those without gardens. Perfect Green has been closed since 2010 as it merged with the neighbouring infant school. In fact, my son went to Perfect Green. The buildings and playing field were surplus to requirements. The school and playing fields were owned and operated by ECC, Essex County Council, and are never open to the public. One of the original drafts of this motion referred to the local plan as emerging. It is not emerging, as the councillors know, as it was created by the last administration and was adopted by Labour in December last year. It is the main document for consideration of planning applications. It sets out the policies by which applications are assessed. It has to be respected by officers and members alike. We don't need to affirm that, although I have left it as unamended. The decision made by the Development Management Committee on the 8th of June, whereby consent was given to build 35 new homes on the site, does not in any way set a precedence, as a council can't predetermine applications. Every planning application is considered by the committee on its own merits. The consent did not go against the local plan in any way, as the site was considered what is called a windfall site. This is provided for within the local plan as a certain number of unexpected sites, which always come forward during a planned period. And I commend this amendment. Thank you.
Councillor David Carter.
Thank you, Chair. What I would like to say is that Harlow's green spaces are incredibly important. We all accept that. And during the pandemic, they became more important with families, especially those who had no gardens. I would like to point out that some years ago, the Labour Council commissioned the Jean McAlpine Park, which sits close to the Pinnacles and close to the new public health campus, which hopefully is being built. The park is on high ground with 2 footpaths leading to the top. These paths are now worn out and covered in weeds with vegetation which has been allowed to grow, and in some areas it's growing across the paths, making it difficult to pass. The trees have matured and have not been managed by the council, and you could see, at one time you could see across to the town centre and beyond, and if you turned right you could see the water tower in Rye Hill Road. This is now difficult to see due to the trees not being managed. There are 3 bench seats and they are in a shabby condition and need replacing. On top of the hill park there is a fire beacon. I think it's the only one in Harlow. I have picked litter 3 times this year, but litter is not a real problem because the park is now so overgrown and shabby due to neglect. Because large parts of it are not used, litter is not a problem. An area of grass has been cut around the edges of some of the paths that are usable, but this lovely place has been poorly managed. I hope it can be made beautiful again in honour of Councillor McAlpine and usable by some 8,000 staff which will be coming to Harlow working for Public Health England. With real care and effort, this could be a welcome area for Harlow. It has to offer the local people and the staff of Public Health England an area to relax in, set themselves up for the busy times they will have looking ahead to the health of our nation. It has been disgracefully left just to go to the room. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Carlisle. Thank Councillor Saul for this speak.
Thank you, Chair, and I speak to support the amendment in the name of Councillor Harlow and Councillor Charles.
Does he have to speak if one would accept the amendment?
I want to speak.
With respect, Dan, you're not the chair.
I'm asking the chair, because surely if I'm happy to accept the amendment, there should be a debate on it, should there? Yeah. Oh, there is? Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Fear not, Chris, I'll come to you.
Can't ruin the end of it.
No, I'll come to you in my speech anyway, I'm sure you'll appreciate it. I speak to support the amendment in the name of Councillor Hardware and Councillor Carter, which may seem somewhat strange given my lambasting of the planning application when it came before the Development and Management Committee. For those who are still circumspect and sober enough to cast their minds back to the application, they'll recall I used French expletives and described the application as harebrained and wrong-headed. I did so for two reasons. First, because of the devastating impact this development will have on local residents in Perfect Green, Stylecroft and Mill Braids. Second, because I resolutely opposed the Section 106 money going to the Church Langley Fields as opposed to Nicholsfield. In fact, I described it as insulting. I stand by that view. On the face of it, I recognise the points set out in Councillor Vince's motion. Indeed, I support the premise that we should not be building on playing fields. And then I did some digging. Well, we are in trouble. Given that Councillor Vince stood to be Police and Crime Commissioner, he's the last person I'd expect to wish to flirt with breaking law, particularly planning law. This council could be at risk of being guilty of openly predetermining future applications if this motion were passed. Of course, Councillor Vince would not be able to run unsuccessfully for the third time as Police and Crime Commissioner if he were to do
clarification, if I may. I did actually check with council officers as to whether this was a legally, as legal, he was able to pass this present this motion legally, and they said I was, so that isn't the case in council.
I used the word could, and I also took advice from planning officers. But from the way they talk about playing fields, you would think they're a party of principle. So let's look at their record. They were the party that built over the Maxwell Bushy Croft playing field. It was that party who turned a blind eye to the extreme concerns raised by residents in Rush's Mead. Mind you, their hypocrisy is in keeping with a quote from Marx. Those are my principles, and if you don't like them, I've got others. I know that Councillor Danvers is keen to get to his seat at the fall of Marx. I'd merely point out to him that those were the words not of Karl, but of Groucho. Finally, casting my mind back to that planning meeting, the chamber was warm, the lights were on, there was a seat for ward councillors to make their objections primed, it was cleaned, and I recall comfortable. So it was shameful that I, the only Conservative councillor in Bushfair, was the only ward councillor to turn up to make my objections. Labour, nowhere to be seen. It's one thing hiding behind your leaders to vote for a pointless motion. It's another standing up for your residents attending meetings to oppose such developments. The fact of the matter is, whilst they twist and turn in the wind like a weather vane playing party politics, we'll crack on with delivering on people's priorities.
Can we agree to the amended motion?
I'd like to accept the motion, yes, Chair.
Is that all agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Right, the item 9 is the main debate. Councillor Jones. I must normally we would have 40 minutes for the main debate. I've allowed it to go to 1 hour.
With the Commissioner.
With the Commissioner of the Council. Is that right? Thank you.
Chair, it is with enormous pride and not a little pleasure that I open this State of the Town debate for only the second time in our town's history with a Conservative-controlled administration. Our administration's core mission will be to make this council transformative for the people that live in Harlow. The council, as indeed all local government, needs to take stock and grasp the post-pandemic opportunity to change and be more responsive, to be a modern council that reflects people's priorities. We will be an enabling council, one that supports the people of our marvellous town to achieve their life's ambitions. We have before us a journey, Chair, and we will spend the summer crafting the Council's new corporate plan, the roadmap for the next few years of delivery. That plan must and will be one that makes the changes that people want to see, that makes Harlow the best place to live, to work, to raise a family. Chair, I'm often informed that history is the best arbiter for today's problems. It's something of an occupational hazard if you are, as I am, married to a history teacher. But take 25 years ago, Chair, 1996. The Conservatives were well into a second decade of power after a shock general election win. The England football team had sadly just lost in the Euros at Wembley on penalties. And here in Harlow, the Playhouse was taking its first tentative steps in reopening following being closed by the then ruling Labour administration after many, many years of financial mismanagement. God, what has changed? It was also at this time, Chair, that I became active in local politics, and I've since seen a pattern emerge. Every time a town suffers from Labour's complacency, neglect and misrule, it's the Conservatives that residents elect to sort things out. Chair, we will not let them down. How pleased I am that later this year we can celebrate together the 50th anniversary of the Playhouse, and whilst I am leader of the council and the Conservatives are in charge, I pledge the Playhouse will always be safe in our hands. As a Conservative, I understand that political differences are healthy, but political affiliation should take a back seat when doing the right thing for those who send us here. It was therefore bitterly disappointing to me and heartbreaking for residents to see in the last year the former administration leaving some of the unprecedented government funding languishing in the bank instead of moving heaven and earth to quickly help our struggling businesses desperately trying to keep afloat during the terrible pandemic. Other more honourable members would have chosen to resign in shame and face the electorate. The former administration, though, said they'd stand on their record. Well, the people of Harlow gave them an answer. Residents that have never voted Conservative before sent Conservative councillors to this chamber, and we are humbled by the trust placed in us by those residents, and we do not underestimate the challenge ahead. But, Chair, we will not let them down. I make no apology for my party being the party of business, understanding as we do its businesses, particularly small and medium businesses, that ensure a local economy thrives and that thousands of hard-working local families have a secure pay packet at the end of the month. We will be meeting with businesses directly to understand how we as a council can help them succeed and what practical messages we can help take to drive forward the local economy. But my message to business tonight, Chair, is plain and simple. Harlow is back and it's open for business. Now I can see some glares from the members opposite. Truths are often hard to swallow, but I want to make them an offer tonight in the interests of our town. One side of political debate rarely has all the answers, Chair. So I say to the Leader of the Opposition and his team, if you want to spend time fighting shadows and opposing by press release, then that's your choice. If, however, you understand as we do that coming out of this pandemic we have a hell of a job to do to rebalance our local economy, to shield the third sector, to empower and support our businesses, to lay the foundations for future growth, housing and employment, and to deliver equality for our of opportunity for our young people, then I say in all sincerity, work with us, help us, support us, because our success is Harlow's success. And Chair, what an extraordinary 18 months most of us have lived through. This shared experience of ours has taken its toll on the town and the country, both emotionally, physically, mentally, socially, and sadly economically. We have worked tirelessly to serve our residents, and when I sum up, I would like to offer later some specific thanks to people. But the government has spent unprecedented amounts of money to fight this awful virus, money which has kept people in jobs and thrown our businesses and charitable sectors a real lifeline. We would be naive in the extreme, though, Chair, if we were to believe that as we emerge from the end of this pandemic, that financial constraints will not be placed upon all of us, including those of us in local government. It's only the economically illiterate that don't understand that such a bill will need to be eventually paid back. I understand it's a worrying time, and for many people, they'll understand that as Conservatives, we will rightly cut our cloth accordingly. But let me make a commitment to the people of Harlow. We will embark on this journey with an overriding principle. It will never be our intention to make any savings required to balance the book, by cutting our frontline services. Despite what the opposition say, we will do all we can to preserve, protect and enhance the much-loved frontline facilities so cherished by our residents. The Playhouse, Pets Corner, Harlow Museum, to name but a few, are jewels in the town's crown, and I will protect them at all costs. In the coming days, Chair, the Cabinet members and I are meeting with senior leadership to continue to formulate plans and models of a number of different financial scenarios so we're best placed to secure our important facilities. And we want to search for additional opportunities that will deliver efficiencies and savings to ensure value for money for our public, including reviewing sharing resources with neighbouring authorities. I look at the statement of intent that we have up there, that we placed up there in our last administration, and I want to re-deliver on those, Chair. Now, as the American pastor Rick Warren famously said, we're products of our past, but we don't have to be prisoners to it. With this in mind, I want to turn to the future. While undoubtedly there are likely to be tough times, I don't want anyone in this chamber or beyond to believe that my ambition only extends to managing the council and a consolidation of what we currently have. In my opinion, the council for too long has suffered from too little ambition and too little aspiration. Our town deserves better. Now, Chair, we've made specific commitments that my team is prepared to achieve and deliver. I want to seize opportunities. We will think creatively and recognise there are solutions to the challenges that we face. And, Chair, I'm not arrogant enough to believe that we have all the answers to all of the questions. In fact, don't believe any member of the public, any politician who tells you that they do have all the answers. And neither am I arrogant enough to believe that only a good idea can come from us. We have enormous expertise and talent in this council, and our brilliant staff, and in the intellect and common sense of our residents of this town. And so with that in mind, tonight I want to announce something, Chair. I'm going to be launching tonight the My Idea Harlow. I'm asking members of the public to share their thoughts and ideas of what they would like to see from the council. I've got a very clear plan and manifesto that we've stood on, but I'm also interested to hear what the public have to say. They can write to me directly using the email myidea@harlow.gov.uk. And no matter who you are or where you come from, if you're a Harlow resident or a Harlow business, I'd love to hear ideas from you. I'd love to hear your views. Chair, I'm also going to ask each of our staff members to contribute an idea. It could be something that could include helping their role, something we don't do that I think they should, or just something that may positively impact our residents. And I'll distribute an email via briefing to all of the staff. If we're truly going to go forward together, Chair, everyone should have the opportunity to have their say, and this council will listen. Chair, as I mentioned, in November we celebrate 50 years of Harlow Playhouse, and next year we've got an incredible milestone, the platinum anniversary of Her Majesty. We've got the Rugby World Cup, we've got the Women's Euros, in which I hope the ladies are able to go one better than the men. But the men have got the World Cup in Qatar. We've got the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham on the back of what I hope is a great Olympics. And after the secluded and isolated period we've all endured in the last 18 months, I'll be asking council staff to look at ways in which we can celebrate some of those events, and many others, publicly and together, so that Harlow can help move on from COVID. Chair, we lived through tough times, but we emerged blinking into the sunlight with a new administration determined to deliver on the priorities of our residents. Braced to meet the challenges ahead, face on and find opportunities in the difficulties encountered to help Harlow grow, thrive and prosper. We'll come together, we'll work together, celebrate together and be together. We'll launch a historic programme of regeneration. We will enhance and protect valued services whilst delivering value for money. We'll work collaboratively with others where possible. We'll consolidate what is good, eliminate what doesn't work, think big for the future and lay the foundations for a better, greater Harlow. The confidence of our town is being re-established from a decade of decline, and I truly believe in the ability of our staff, the determination of all in Harlow, and the ingenuity, resilience and commitment of our residents. Chair, the state of our town is strong, but we will do what we can to make it even stronger. I commend this statement to the Chamber.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, let me say genuinely, it's good to see you all in person. Although sitting here like this, it does feel a little bit like we're standing or sitting in an exam hall, which brings back flashback to my days as a teacher. But it is good to be back. And I want to say, Chair, on a personal note,
how proud I am to have been re-elected as councillor for Little Pondon and Hare Street. And anyone who saw me on election night when the result was a little closer than perhaps I'd been expecting will know how nervous I was. But I realised that night actually how much being a councillor and representing my community means to me. Because at the end of the day, when the back and forth in this chamber ends, the party politics is forgotten, and it is forgotten. It's what we do in our community, for our community, which really matters. Removing dump rubbish, getting a broken fence fixed, a drain unblocked. They may seem like small things, but they make a big difference to those people who report them to us. And look, I know many in this chamber don't need me reminding, but my big plea to all councillors is let's show we're not just around election time, that we listen to residents' concerns and we articulate the role and importance of local government. Because ultimately, scepticism about politics and politicians, a low turnout election time, voter apathy, it doesn't help anyone. I've got mixed feelings standing here as leading the opposition. It's a huge honour to lead the Labour group on Harlow District Council, but I'd rather be a backbencher and be in power. Because some people get in politics to be somebody. I got in politics to do something. And I do want to pay tribute to the councillors who've made a big difference to their community, who sadly lost their seats in May. Lainey, Emma, Stefan, Phil and Mark. Particularly Mark, who led this council through unprecedented times. As much as our party might be disappointed, we do have to put things into perspective. This has been a terrible time for so many people in our country and in our town. And I know the Conservative group have suffered a loss themselves. We had to say goodbye to two hugely loved and hugely valued colleagues, Councillor Francis Mason and Councillor Danny Burton. His contribution to our party and this town cannot be underestimated. It's for them that Labour goes on. It's for all those people who supported us in the elections, we go on. And it's for the people of Harlow that we go on. And I do want to briefly thank Brian and his team. When we talk about key workers, we rightfully talk about the NHS, about our retail workers and our emergency services. But I know there are council staff who work out throughout this pandemic, and I thank them for that. I do want to briefly address some of the comments made by the administration, who during the election made some pretty bold statements. They claimed we had council tax without cuts to services, even though we know most of the council tax goes to Essex County Council and the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner Office. They can give more money funding to schools and the NHS, which isn't the responsibility of this council. They also painted a picture of Harlow Labour administration, which just isn't true. And look, something we didn't do enough of during the election, or before, and it has been commented on, is talk about what we did achieve in administration. Which is why now, in true Gordon Brown style, I will do just that. But I will make the point that this is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure my other councillors have plenty more to add. A Labour-led Harlow Council created HTS and brought £1.5 million of profit back to the people of Harlow. Invested £500,000 in the regeneration and rejuvenation of our town's planning pools. A Labour-led Harlow Council protected and improved Pets Corner and Playhouse. A Labour-led Harlow Council protected Sounds Place with Essex County Council's palace proposals to charge parents of the most vulnerable children in our town. A Labour-led Harlow Council declared a climate emergency and planted 5,000 trees. A Labour-led council built new council homes with many more in the pipeline. A Labour-led council ensured for 9 years there were no staff cuts or redundancies. A Labour-led Harlow Council began fire safety work keeping residents in tower blocks safe. A Labour-led Harlow Council, you see where this is going, it brought a balanced local plan for the people of Harlow. A Labour-led Harlow Council regenerated areas of beauty such as Oakwood Pond and Netswell Pond. A Labour-led Harlow Council began the planting of beautiful wildflower meadows. A Labour-led Harlow Council introduced the Harlow Education Awards. A Labour-led Harlow Council brought back the Harlow Carnival and the Bush Fair. A Labour-led Harlow Council brought the museums back in-house. A Labour-led Harlow Council introduced Article 4 direction, preventing more office blocks from being converted into homes. A Labour-led Harlow Council secures funding for the regeneration of our town centre worth £23 million. A Labour-led Harlow Council continues to keep the upkeep of the beautiful and award-winning town park and the new playground. A Labour-led council began the bidding for the Levelling Up Fund. A Labour-led Harlow council opened the Enterprise Zone, the largest supercomputer in the UK. A Labour-led Harlow council brought a PHE to Harlow, we hope, as long as it's not messed up, bringing £370 million investment and creating nearly 3,000 jobs. A Labour-led council, mainly Maggie Halbrook, saved Osler House, and finally a Labour-led Harlow council set up the community hub and helped the residents of Harlow through a global pandemic. Chair, I for one think this new administration has a lot to live up to. I'll finish by quoting the greatest opposition leader in British political history, a man named John Smith, who sadly died too young, and I'm paraphrasing, but you'll understand why. The opportunity to serve, that's all we ask. As Councillor Harvey pointed out when we spoke shortly after I became leader of the Labour group, as opposition members, we still have an important part to play in serving the people of Harlow. The current leader of the council, when in opposition, spoke of the importance of scrutiny, and in that we can both agree. Because I've seen what happens in councils when there isn't strong opposition, or any opposition at all for that matter. We see councillors who sit back and don't engage in the chamber, or worse still, which is completely unforgivable, don't engage with their communities. As leader of the opposition, I assure the new council leader as stringent but as fair scrutiny as possible. I'll agree with him if he makes the right decision, but be sure I'll hold him to account when he doesn't. Because the people of Harlow demand, no, they deserve no less from their opposition. We won't sit back and let the new administration rewrite history of what we've achieved. We'll set out what Labour believes is the right vision for our town in the post-COVID world we are so desperate for. A vision which is green and which is community focused. And we'll show the people of Harlow that it is Labour that are on their side. Thank you, Chair.
Now it comes to the debate. Councillor Danvers.
Thank you, Chair. Well, rhetoric is cheap, but actions are what people are actually judged by. At the end of the day, the authority actually distributed £38 million to businesses and people affected in the last 18 months. And the other statistic, perhaps we might remind ourselves of, is 16% of the Harlow electorate voted Conservative in May. 84% either voted against them or didn't vote at all. And reflecting on the Chair, I wouldn't be heckled all the time. Or with the Mark Hall election, we're actually seeing quite a judgment in the last few months. I'm not surprised. Local plan, ripped up. Council housing, some doubt over the future of social housing. Veolia, despite the bluster in your Harlow, I'm still tripping over, and so was Councillor Carter and our new councillor and Councillor Mike Garney only the other week during the by-election, where all the uncollected are rubbish. So 8 weeks on, we're being told that it's being dealt with. Apparently we've got the best cycle tracks in the world to look forward to. We've got a very, very strong finance situation in this town, very sound finance, which was only reported on Monday. In fact, it was acknowledged by the new regime opposite that the finance of the town was very sound. So it's going to be interesting to see how they cope with that. Environmentally, we're always being told by the portfolio holder for housing at the, I'm not quite sure whether it's the local plan or the town plan, and get quite confused about what the new regime want to do. But we were told by the new portfolio holder for housing there wouldn't be any chance of solar panels for council housing. It would be unaffordable. And we actually, that was said at the meeting at the local plan by Councillor Carter. And in regards to the ambitions for the town, it's only, and Danny Purton picked up on this very well, the deputy leader of the council now talking in the opposition about small town Harlow. Harlow was a small town. It didn't deserve a public transport system of the new century. And in those circumstances, they've already said they're tearing up the proposals for the new transport system. Many European towns have fine transport systems that we actually need to inform, to invest in. So rhetoric is okay, but the past record, when they were last in power, what happened to the paddling pools? What happened to the museum? It took us ages to get it back to the state that it should be. What was happening for the finances of the playhouse? What's happened to the nature reserve? That hasn't even come back to the local authority. Public conveniences closed all over the town, and we've struggled now to actually reopen them. So in those particular circumstances, their past record 10 years ago speaks for itself at the moment, and the very few things that they've done recently doesn't bode well. And the final thing is, the leader of the council is saying, let's have polite, civilised politics. And then we're getting barbs across the way of personal insults at this council meeting, Chair, which you seem to be allowing to happen. So what is it? Are we going to actually have polite debate or not? Because the leader of the council suggested at the annual council meeting, he painted some kind of picture that it wasn't civilised debate in the past. Are we actually going to just have personal bias, or are we actually going to have decent, reasonable debate on these issues? It's not a record that the previous Tory administration 10 years ago can be proud of, and I look forward, given their dreadful record so far in the last few weeks, perhaps it's down to the experience, perhaps they're a bit rusty, of how they've performed so far. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gunn.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to participate in this debate and set out how the environment portfolio can contribute to improving our town in the year ahead. I've already had the opportunity, and thank you to Councillor Davis for that, to set out the green agenda that I'm working on. However, whilst climate change is the defining issue that we face globally, now and for the foreseeable future, in many ways it's but a small part of the many important responsibilities I'm grateful to have been tasked with by the new leader, Councillor Andrew Johnson. And one of my top priorities is enhancing Harlow's environment and improving its street scene. It's fair to say I've got my work cut out, and I've now got the G McAlpine Park added to my list, so thanks, Councillor Carter, that was another one. In the early weeks of being in this role, I've been busy responding to residents and fellow councillors on overgrown pathways that need cutting back, parks and playing fields that haven't been mown, and at times having to point out to HTS areas where their landscaping work has sadly left residents with the impression that we here in this council don't care about their town. Let me say, I think we all understand how hard a year it's been for so many people, and HTS have had to face all the challenges of carrying on with their varied work through COVID. The recent weather as well has been great for green growth, but not for those whose job it is to mow it, trim it, and otherwise maintain Harlow's greenery. And having met with HTS to discuss these challenges, I've been encouraged that they want to do better too. This week, at my request, they've started doing works to improve the look of the Latin Bush Centre, which had previously been neglected, and I know they share my ambition to see a Harlow that truly reflects the pride that we all have in our town. They're also looking to help with the fight against fly posting. And we've already introduced a tougher policy which has attracted some national attention and which must now be rigorously enforced. It's important also to acknowledge the huge challenge we face with the waste collection contract with Veolia and the deeply inadequate service. We are now making full use of the levers available to us in the contract to hold Veolia to account and deliver improvements. Harlow residents are right to have high expectations for their town and to hold this council to those high standards. If Veolia are not collecting their bins on time, that fails to meet even the most basic of expectations, and this new administration recognises our responsibility to solve this issue. I especially want to thank those council staff who've been fielding complaints from those whose bin collections have been missed, and I want to thank my team of senior officers who are working so hard with Veolia to turn this situation around. We're all working hard together to fix this, and I hope to be able to set up some positive changes soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. And before I start, can I also personally welcome John to the Council. Whilst I'm absolutely gutted you're here, I do know that you have been a strong and loyal advocate for the Council, working with Sue and others in the ceremonial part of the Council. So I think we need to recognise that. In relation to the speeches, can I actually say I welcome the reassurances that we are receiving as a town that there will be no impact on services that the local community love. In fact, we've heard tonight that in fact there's going to be more investment in these particular areas, and absolutely we will welcome to see the oversight of when those investments are going to be made, how they're going to be made and how they're going to be implemented. At the end of the day, we all share the same aspiration, which is actually we come to this chamber because we want to make a difference for our town. Now, we may have political differences and we may have ideological ideas of how that can be implemented, but let's not get into the childish, pathetic arguing about it. Let's take what the leader has been saying and let's share aspiration and let's get it right. And when we ask questions, it's not because we're being awkward or difficult, it's because we have the same passion for our town and we will continue to have that passion. The classic example, me and Shona years ago talked about why can't we plant wildflowers. And it took us a long time to get there, but we were absolutely determined. Now, I'm sure Alistair forgot when he gave his answer, because whilst he did say he would support the planting of 5,000 trees plus, he failed to mention an investment in future development around wildflowers. But I'm absolutely sure that was an oversight, and I'm sure Shona will do everything in her power and influence to make sure that we do not lose that wonderful opportunity. It's absolutely right that we should all talk up Harlow. It is about us being champions of our town, our community, and what we strive to do. So again, cheap political points may sound good in this chamber, but we absolutely know the general public don't want to hear that. They don't want to listen to that. What they want is solutions to the particular problem. So I hope, as the leader has said, that actually his party will accept that we will be acting as critical friends, and when we have to challenge, we will challenge robustly, with strength, but also hopefully with dignity and professionalism. What we need to avoid, of course, is the spin. And certainly the last election had plenty of spin that was going on. Say, for instance, you quoted that Harlow homes are for Harlow people. Well, what does that mean? What does the general main message mean? So does that mean the people who are now going to relocate with Public Health England don't have the right and access to homes in Harlow because they're not Harlow people? Does that also affect the quote from Andrew Johnson the other day, and he was taking some form of ownership about the increase of international nurses that we have recruited in the NHS from India and other areas? That has been going on for 2 years by a hardcore dedicated team of the training department that's actually based at Harlow College. But we can't have the spin by saying, since we've got in power, this is what we've done. With respect, that's nothing more than a lie. And people will not forget or forgive if we are not being honest and truthful. And Andrew's absolutely right. If we don't know, we should be honest to say we don't know. It's a bit like, I don't know if the gentleman is about the sport issues, is there are a number of people who actually support the thing in principle, but now we're looking at the detail, the impact and effect of that. And it's quite right for us all to be going back and taking one step back and actually having a look at it. And again, I welcome Andrew's initiative following Councillor Edwards' suggestion that we all gather around the plan and actually scrutinise it to see what it's all about. But please, please, whatever you do, Andrew, and I don't know who you're employing as your spin doctor at the moment, but it must stop. My final point, Chair, is Andrew did say it was 10 years ago when he was last in power and this was his first speech. But what happened in those 10 years? Tories lost. They lost every year, they lost seats, they lost numbers, they lost credibility. Because what they did is that they tried to close our public services, they bankrupt those public services, and actually Harlow voted them out. So you've got a hard task, and we will be champions of our local community. But I'm absolutely grateful for the comments that have been made by the leader, and I don't want to wish him luck, but for the town... You all right?
Very well.
Okay. For the town, I hope we can work together. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Harlow.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight is about the future, explaining what we are going to be doing in the coming municipal year. But as a new administration, we have to look at recent history to give us some context. Over recent years, we have seen significant investment in Harlow from our Conservative government and by the Conservative-led Essex County Council. Although many have been involved, and I will agree with Councillor Vince that Harlow Council have been involved, but it has been the unstinting efforts of our MP Robert Halfon which has helped secure much of this funding. But not to forget the 4 county councillors whose efforts often go unnoticed and very often uncredited. Recent investments in Harlow, if I can just summarise them, have included, and it's been mentioned before, the enterprise zone, several highways improvements, including the Hamburger roundabout. You can all remember trying to get back into Harlow in the evening in that traffic. The London Road works around the enterprise zone, which have yet to be utilised because the enterprise zone isn't finished, and dare I mention it, Edinburgh Way. And now we have a new junction 7A on the M11, an £85 million project due for completion early next year. A phenomenal job, I have to say, and will have a significant impact on traffic in our town. The Housing Infrastructure Grant, HIG. Often residents complain that infrastructure is not built before the housing. The HIG provides the funding to build that infrastructure ahead of the Gilston villages. A phenomenal £172 million of it. A new £600 million new hospital, which is due apparently for completion in 2025. The Harlow and Gilston Garden Town. This team gets £500,000 a year to help facilitate a modern garden town built to garden city principles. Public Health England, another £500 million plus investment in Harlow, which will make it a bioscience world centre with other investment and a whole supply chain to follow. The Towns Fund, £24 million for several projects around the town, including a new bus station. The Harlow Investment Fund, a hopefully £50 million fund to facilitate the regeneration of the town centre, with £5 million coming from Harlow Council and £5 million from Essex County Council, with the remainder from Homes England and the Gilston Villages developer. The other developers around the town will be investing in the town. We're looking at probably £500 million of Section 106 monies to come to Harlow. We have developers putting applications in the town centre. Not many of them have built any, but some of them are coming out of the ground, including the one for 836 new apartments, Strawberry Strong, which is in now. There are other amounts of money on the way. £25 million bid for the Levelling Up Fund, the Community Renewal Fund, the Active Travel Fund, and the Garden Town Rolling Infrastructure Fund, which will provide millions of pounds of investment into the town. This is all, of course, excellent news, but Harlow itself has suffered for almost a decade under Labour with no vision, no leadership, no ideas, and no innovation. Just look at the town centre. It seems everyone else has seen the potential of our fantastic town, except the council administration that was supposed to be leading it. The Garden Town initiative was a fantastic concept, well in line with what Sir Freddie Gibbard had a vision for, but not spotted by Harlow Council. It was spotted by East Herts next door. Harlow went along with it at the time, and during the last 2 years that I've been attending Garden Town meetings, Harlow Labour Council has shown little enthusiasm for the whole idea. The government and Conservative-led Essex County Council, however, have seen the potential and have invested in our town. And at the last local elections, the residents realised what is happening in their town, or what was not happening, and voted on the ballot paper to change things. The lack of leadership has meant that numerous bodies and organisations involved with Harlow have all been working to their own strategies, seeking to achieve their own ambitions and objectives. Although many of these aspirations are common, some are not, and timetables are rarely the same. The organisations I'm referring to is the Harlow and Guildford Garden Town, Harlow Growth Board, Discover Harlow, the UK Innovation Corridor, Essex County Council, the Digital Innovation Zone, Harlow Chamber of Commerce, and of course Harlow District Council itself. Yeah, sure. So my first task, and I'll be very brief, as the Cabinet Member for Strategic Growth, is to oversee the development of a vision for the future of our town, defining what we want to be, where we want to go, and how we are going to get there. This vision will be encapsulated in a new town plan, looking forward almost 30 years to 2047, when Harlow is 100 years old. But it won't be my plan, or this council's town plan, it will be the town's town plan.
You went over your time.
Am I? Oh dear.
But you're going to carry on anyway. Go for it, Michael.
I should finish there then.
What's he going to do?
Great, Chair. What some of you may or may not know about me is that I'm from quite a large family. I've got 2 brothers and 3 sisters, which I kind of put down to my parents maybe not having the TV in the early years of their marriage. That's not another story. My point is that there were very few places that we could all go together that were free, such as the Pets Corner, and I hope that this will remain so. I know that Councillor Johnson tonight says that it will remain free. However, I kind of fall back on the Tory ECC plan to charge for Sam's Place, which was described by Councillor Vince. And Councillor Charles' answer was, for me, it could have put at best, and I quote, that there is no plan, essentially, or no plan that has been seen to charge for Sam's Place, which doesn't seem like one way or the other. I think it's important for all that these facilities, such as Sam's Place and Pets Corner, because I kind of connect the two, both are so good for your mental health, that they remain free, because you can't have that extra anxiety of thinking that you can go one week and not the other, for example. That will certainly make a dent in your mental health. And it's to be hoped that Councillor Johnson, as he says, will keep these things free for future generations to enjoy as we have. No doubt we'll be watching to see if this happens. I know that we have some very talented councillors within our group who will be very decisive and very incisive looking at the Tory plans. So yes, I hope that all the good intentions do last. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You caught me unaware. Never. The last 15 months have tested the resilience of our town, but the continuing efforts of volunteers, key workers, charities, faith groups and health and care professionals who have been on the front line supporting our town throughout the pandemic show how strong our community is. Their ongoing commitment will never be forgotten. It is the intention of this administration to capture the momentum behind the community response, built up during the lockdowns, and continue to enhance our local networks as part of the post-COVID response. However, I must add some caution. As we are still in a delicate phase of the transition out of COVID-specific legal restrictions. The focus now must be to continue to monitor infection levels and ensure the local population is vaccinated, particularly younger age groups. Although good progress is being made, we cannot become complacent about the impact of COVID-19 and its ability to spread in our community. Working closely with council officers, Princess Alexandra Hospital and the West Essex CCG, I will continue to support the vaccination rollout by identifying locations for a vaccination bus to target parts of the town where take-up needs to be improved. I will also help address the backlog of routine appointments through a focused communications exercise and the offer of facilities to our CCG colleagues. It is a privilege to be the portfolio holder for community resilience, and I know most things in politics are temporary. As the current steward of the community brief, I will do all I can to celebrate the many elements of this town that make it the greatest place to live. In the few months since taking up the role, I have been able to begin the work to cement our administration's plans to further boost the council's commitment to the many diverse groups of people who make up our town. I will work tirelessly to spread inclusion and find ways to enhance the life chances of residents through increased opportunity. It is our administration's view that Harlow should be seen as the best town in the country to earn, learn and bring up a family. Before more progress can be achieved, the strategic drift we inherited from the previous administration must be addressed in earnest. So I will bring forward a new health and wellbeing, community safety and community engagement plan to deliver new purpose and direction. My ambition is to co-create these strategies with community leaders to strengthen the response to health inequalities, antisocial behaviour and the legitimate concerns raised by residents that they feel the council has failed to properly engage with them in the past. This administration will be open about engaging with residents so that they have a greater say. Community engagement must be improved to aid the recovery from COVID-19, so this administration will be bringing forward plans for more direct democracy. Making our streets safer was a key commitment made by my colleagues and I during the local election campaign. We are pressing ahead with plans to install CCTV in the town's 24 underpasses. Action must be taken to address crime hotspots. We will work closely with our district police commander and other criminal justice partners to address antisocial behaviour and crime in all its forms. One of the other areas of my responsibility is the development of the future commercial strategy for the HTS group. Plans are being developed to position HTS as a major provider of public services in the east of England. It is my firm belief that scaling up the commercial potential of HTS is good for the taxpayers and will put Harlow on the map as a major regional hub for quality public service delivery. That is what we are elected to do, and that's what we will deliver for the residents of this town. A positive agenda focused on embedding inclusion at the heart of everything this council sets out to achieve, addressing inequality wherever it surfaces, reaching out to the vulnerable in our community. This is a Conservative administration that is getting on with the job, working hard to enhance social justice, delivering strong leadership to confront the challenges but also the opportunities that lie ahead for this town as we rebuild from the pandemic. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I just want to follow on and pick up on a couple of the comments from Councillor Hardware, if I may, before I start. And that was, I mean, Councillor Harlow gave a list of all the the strong position that this town is in terms of monies that's going to be coming into the town, etc. Where does he think the work went on to ensure that that happened? Under which administration does he think the work went on to ensure that that happened? It was under the Labour administration that that work went on with central government, that that work went on with the county councils, and that work went on with the neighbouring authorities. It was the Labour authority, this Labour council here, that can be very extremely proud of the work that it did to ensure that the council is in the strong position it is in now. And that needs to be recognised. You made the point about the town centre, saying how dreadful the town centre is. Of course we all know how dreadful the town centre is. May I remind him that we've actually gone through 10 years of austerity, 11, 12 years of austerity. Can I also remind him that at one point there was a plan, I think it was the Australians that had a plan to redevelop the whole lot of the town centre at one point. And that fell immediately. We went into austerity, that plan fell through. Can I also remind him that we own little or nothing of the town centre? Yes, practically nothing of it, because of the legacy that went years ago when the development corporations carved the town up and carved up the resources of the town. So as far as the Labour Authority is concerned, we were working with and one could argue an extremely bad hand in the first place in terms of the redevelopment of the town centre. And what we have done, and what the officers in particular have done over the last few years, is to ensure that they've worked with central government, that they've worked with the other local authorities to try and ensure that how can I put it, that the packages of funding are starting to fall into place. You're the lucky ones, because you're going to be the ones that are going to inherit that. And we will be looking to you, and we'll be holding you to account with what you do with that inheritance. I sincerely hope that we are successful in getting a major regeneration of the town centre. Of course I do. Everyone wants that. But it came from initially the work that this authority had done over the years. Now I note that in terms of the main debate, it actually says introduce a debate on the work undertaken by the council in 2021, together with any highlights, pressures and potentials from issues for the coming year. Well, the Conservatives are very much concentrating on the issues for the coming year. So I just want to concentrate on some of the successes of Harlow Council over the last year, specifically over the last year. So we paid out over £174,000 to 348 residents who were told to self-isolate. We paid out over £40 million in government grants and relief to businesses. Even despite the Tory slurs that somehow or other Harlow Council was bad for business, an enemy of business, I think was in one of the notices that they put out. We paid out over £866,000 in additional council tax support to over 6,000 households. In terms of the community hub, we answered over 4,500 calls from residents. We made over 9,300 welfare calls to vulnerable residents to see how they were doing. We supported over 1,700 residents by referring them to other partner agencies. We collected over 664 prescriptions for those unable to collect them. We accommodated and supported 64 rough sleepers. We added to the supply of council housing with the purchase of 45 homes on the open market. We enhanced Decent Homes programme by completing COVID-secure major external refurbishment. I could go on and on. In terms of the success of this council was a well-functioning council. This council was delivering You now have that inheritance. I wish you well with that inheritance, but I wish you well because we the residents of Harlow need you to succeed, and we will be watching your progress and holding you accountable for that progress.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard much tonight about what Labour apparently did in the past, and we've been reminded several times of what that is. We've been often accused of rewriting history on this side of the chamber. Don't let it be me getting away with the facts. 5,000 trees were apparently planted under the last administration. I'm reliably informed by the portfolio holder for environment that most of those trees are now dead. Let us not ever forget that the only party that ever shut the Playhouse sits over there, not over here. Shocking. When I came in with the rest of the Conservatives over 10 years ago, there was a £10 million black hole in this council's finances. Those much-loved discretionary services were very much at risk. There was a non-housing capital programme with only £79,000 in the account, but contractually obliged to millions of pounds worth of spend. The crematorium in a state of utter decline. The roof leaking. Plots overgrown. No dignity. We were accused of privatising death when we brought in a private contractor to sort that out. I reminded one of their more esteemed members that no one has a monopoly on death. It comes to us all. And now we did that, many millions have returned to this council. The Krem is in a much better state and on a much stabler footing. But there's more. We've heard tonight about a proactive tree maintenance programme that was non-existent. Meaningful consultation on the local development plan, non-existent. Painting to council homes, non-existent. Regeneration of the town centre, non-existent. Improvement in our estates, non-existent. We've heard about the G. McAlpine Park, and dare I say, our much-loved Holocaust Memorial Garden, gone to seed. Our environment and the progress thereof, non-existent. A grip on the Veolia contract, non-existent. Support for hard-up taxpayers with a council tax freeze just might have been nice, but that, alas, was non-existent. This might just explain why their administration is no longer existent. What have you got with us? Equalities and diversities and inclusivity policy, first thing, out the traps. We've heard tree maintenance programme in the offing, a housing painting programme in the offing, a town plan coming forth with millions of pounds worth of investment. We're asked, where does that come from? I tell you, central government, which is Conservative. We have an MP who's working and fighting every day to help support the residents of this town. We have a budget review process in the offing. It started and it is underway to find the savings and efficiency that will help us invest in our much-loved discretionary services, but provide the council tax cut that the residents voted overwhelmingly for in this chamber. We've heard about CCTV trying to protect people. We've heard so much good things tonight about what we are going to do and many things that we have achieved in short order already. And we've heard about the election in Markhall. The first time in 20 years the people of Markhall returned a Conservative councillor there, and then 6 weeks later they thought it was a bloody good idea and did it again. So I will not sit here and listen to the Labour Party tell me how brilliant things were.
Could we please not have swearing in this chamber, please? I think it's offensive and it needs to be called out.
I tell you what's offensive, Councillor Durkin, is 10 years of Labour decline. And I tell you what now,
and I will his language, please.
Duly noted, Chair. This administration is one of support and compassion. Theirs was one of neglect. This administration is one of action. Theirs was one of protest. This administration is one of regeneration and renewal. Theirs one of decline.
And as I say, that's why we're sat here, they're sat there. And we've heard of lies. They're only lying to themselves if they deny any of this. And that's the thing I find most bonkers about this whole situation. And I think secretly they know they're lying to themselves. We know they're lying to themselves. They know that we know that they're lying to themselves. And yet they still lie. Good night.
This will be the last speaker.
Thank you, Chair. And well, there's an act to follow, and I note the change of tone from the new opposition. Dare I add? I also recall their tone when they were in charge. I believe that I'm the first Conservative councillor ever elected by the good people of Bush Fair to speak in a State of the Town debate. I also do so as the youngest councillor ever elected in this town. But far more personally, I'm the first councillor to speak in this chamber sporting a strong Tuscan sunset mop on my head. I describe it as a mop because it serves the only purpose us Conservative seems to have: to clear up their mess. Given that I started with firsts, perhaps I can set out unequivocally that we will be the first council in Harlem to ever deliver a full regeneration programme, the biggest since this town was built. But before I set out our plans to do so, I must pay tribute to my predecessor in this role, Councillor Durkee, and of course the previous Labour Council. And I do recognise their recording this. I do recognise their passion. Just wait. Oh, okay. It can be no easy feat spending 9 years justifying week in, week out why you have not delivered any regeneration. It can be no easy feat finding endless plug holes in which to pour taxpayers' money down, all the while letting our town centre fall into further decline. It cannot be easy adding pages onto the book, which now seems equivalent to the size of the Doomsday Book, of excuses as to why, when Labour were in control, no successful regeneration was completed. Following such an act is daunting. I approach this moment with much of the same sense of self-doubt as Simba in The Lion King. For the benefit of those who've not seen Walt Disney's film, there's a poignant moment when Simba, following Mufasa across the veld, compares his own paws with the vast paw prints left of the great beast. And such are my feelings today.
I love this guy.
I thought my assessment may be somewhat harsh. So, Chair, if you will indulge me, I would like to take you all on a metaphorical tour of the town. We must begin, of course, in the greatest neighbourhood of all. Suppose one is climbing the 14th flight of stairs in Moore Tower. One suddenly comes to the dramatic cutting, the Khyber Pass of Harlow, where ahead, spread out like a land of dreams, is the plain of Bush Fair. That, roughly speaking, is my ward. Sticking on regeneration, however, perhaps we can start with the neighbourhood shopping centre, because that's where the community shines brightest. Incredible shopkeepers work day and night to provide for Bush Fair, yet day in, day out, they battle broken pavements, leaking roofs, crumbling tiles, peeling paint, battered benches, lack of footfall. So what grand plan did the Labour Party have to enact to inject life into the veins of Bush Fair? Nothing, my good folks. Not even a sausage, which I would strongly recommend you all purchase from Shepherd and Wright butchers in Bush Fair. On we must press up Southern Way over what seems like every mini roundabout in the east of England in staple tie. As Abercrombie Way and Southern Way collide, we are met with the flaming blue hoardings of the old Lister house site. Vacant for years, empty, boarded up. Did the Labour Party get a mere spade in the ground, I hear from the observer chuntering in the back row? Nothing. Not even did they remove the baby pram which has been left to rot on the site. Again, I would strongly recommend they buy a new one from marvellous one-stop baby shop in Bush Fair. Perhaps they can use it to wheel their wounded councillors home. I could go on across my tour across the whole town, but time is of the essence, so we will fly down a cycle path. Soon I may add to be part of the world's greatest cycle track network towards the town centre. I'll park up not on a secure bike rack because there are none, but at the yawning entrance to Market Square, Eastgate Post Office Walk, the broken windows of the putrescent market house, the offer of a £1 can of K-Strong cider, and yes, you called it
the excuses the Labour Party used as to why they never breathed new life into our town centre hurtling towards you. And then, through one of the ever-widening smashed windows of the Rose darts a dazzling ray of light towards you. In fact, Chair, fast-forwarding you to the opening of our brand new town centre, delivered by this Conservative Council. New shops, bars, restaurants, venues, cafes, a bustling market and the best infrastructure ever delivered by District Council. That will be our new town centre. But our programme will not stop there. The hatches, the neighbourhoods, the estate, all vaccinated with a new life for the next 70 years of British weather. Whole and complete. No forgotten corners. No no-go areas. No ifs, no buts, no dividend, no delay. The greatest regeneration... Oh, it's at the outset. I need breath. The greatest regeneration project delivered by a district council. One that our town can be proud of. One that puts Harlow on the map as the best place to live and to be. The best place to shop and entertain. It is my pledge that we will finally answer those forgotten pleas that have for too long been ignored and build back better.
Thank you, Chair. I am glad to have the opportunity to sum the debate from our point of view. I didn't expect agreement across the chamber on this one, to be fair. But I do actually welcome some of the comments made by the new leader of Harlow Council. And of course want to work with him for the best of our town. Because ultimately, we all sit here, you know, want to make a show, but ultimately we want the best for our town. I'm not overly convinced by this email system that he's setting up. I prefer to find out the views of residents, actually going out in communities and speaking with them and asking them. I recognise it may be not possible at the moment, and I look forward to seeing what responses he gets. With regards to the comments about Jean McAlpine Park, I've only visited Jean McAlpine Park, named after the wonderful councillor Jean McAlpine. Once it was a trying to find a rough sleeper. I would say that I personally find whenever there's any overgrown paths or bushes or whatever it might be, I contact HTS and they're actually pretty good at sorting those issues out. And you know, if Councillor Carter or anyone else wants to bring those issues to me, chris.vince@harlow.gov.uk, I'm more than happy to trace HTS for you. I've always wanted to be a councillor who gets things done. That's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in all this flamboyance, whatever you want to call it. I'm interested in trying to make a difference for my community. Sometimes I get a bit carried away and I think I want to get a new playground in Northbrooks, and I'm told that there isn't the money. And the reality is we have suffered 10 years of cuts to local authority finances by this Conservative government. And I also want to make the point that the Equality, Inclusion and Diversity report was first the brainchild of the wonderful and sadly missed Francis Mason. Let's never forget her influence on that, and I know that the cabinet member would accept that correction. I am a councillor for Little Palm and Hare Street, the best ward in Harlow. I'm also, she's going to tell me off for saying this, I'm soon to be getting married. I agree with. She is the most tolerant woman in the world, and anyone alive by knows that that's true. And I'm also a Harlow Town season ticket holder. And I was at one of the friendlies the other day, and one of the fans said to me, the reason people like you, Chris, which was news to me, is he said, you don't always just have a go at the Tories, you always try and be positive. And I thought, do you know what, I'll bear that in mind, and that's how I'm going to be in today's meeting, and I hope that that's come across. So I'm going to call on my inner